Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. To Catholics and non-Catholics alike, the imposing Romanesque buildings of St. Charles Seminary, St. Charles Borromeo Seminary, at the corner of Wynwood Avenue and City Line Avenue have special significance. Founded in 1832, St. Charles continues its primary mission, the formation of young men for the priesthood, in the face of challenges to the church and to the priesthood. Under the leadership of its current rector, Bishop Timothy Sr., St. Charles is experiencing a bit of a renaissance, both in the physical plant, as those who pass by that intersection will see over the next several months and years, as well as in the curriculum and the approach to training priests so that they continue to be relevant in an increasingly rapidly changing society and increasingly secular society. Welcome, Bishop, to 30 Minutes.
Thank you so much.
Delighted to have you. I was really, my son, Mark, whom you know, really reintroduced me to St. Charles Borromeo just before the holidays. Went down, hadn't been on the campus for a very long time. It is just as imposing as I remembered it when I was a younger man, a much younger man. And there is something special. There is, I don't know if hallowed ground is the right description, but there certainly is something holy about the ambiance of the buildings. It is a special place. I was also surprised by the number of seminarians who were there. My impression, and we'll be getting into this, was that the number had diminished to pretty much of a trickle. Happily, that is not the case, as you will share with us. First of all, I know that you have an impressive business background yourself, and I think in business parlance, rather than rector, you would be referred to as the president or CEO of a large, complicated, and organization in need of revitalization. Is that an overstatement? Do you consider yourself a
Well, I'm first and foremost a priest and
Of
bishop
course.
now. Yeah, so it's sometimes priests are called upon by the church in the course of our ministry to be administrators.
Yes.
And really every pastor has an aspect of his
Indeed.
life and ministry that has an administrative component to it.
Indeed, yes.
And my experience as a priest over the last 30 years that I've been ordained now in May, please God, has been afforded me a number of opportunities in that regard. So, yeah. So I guess it's true. It's like being the president of a small college.
Exactly. And in addition to your undergraduate degree, you have an MBA from Boston College.
Yes.
And a master's in
Social work.
social
Yeah.
work from Boston as well.
Also from BC. Yeah.
Those are impressive credentials.
Thanks.
Many people are curious about the published reports about what's happening at St. Charles Borromeo and the likelihood that some portion of the property will be leased or sold to a third party for development.
Right.
Can you fill us in on what's going on?
Well, sure. We've been on the campus in Lower Merion since the late 1860s. Their campus has two main sort of sections. The upper campus, or the theology division, has been almost in continuous use since 1870. And then the college division, which you see, really the main imposing building with the chapel, St. Martin's Chapel, which is just really glorious,
Beautiful, yeah.
was built in 1928. And the buildings were really built for a seminary that doesn't exist anymore, really, in a sense, and hasn't existed for some time. I mean, to have 500 men in formation to the priesthood would be almost impossible to undertake in the way in which we do formation today.
Is that the capacity, or was the capacity?
It would be at one time, yeah. Today, there's been an excess capacity in the campus for quite some time.
Yes.
Really, there was when I was a student there in the 1980s. And our enrollment has stabilized there, but the buildings have been deteriorating, and to be a sustainable ministry of the church long term, we have to both renovate and also live within our means, basically. That through the generosity of many, many people, particularly in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, the seminary has continued to operate over the years, but it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're as efficient as possible. So we have over the course of the years that I've been at the seminary, and rather early on, I was given a mandate to develop a plan for a sustainable model for a theological center in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, that both for the formation of clergy as well as for the education of laymen and women and religious of all faiths, actually, who can come to the seminary to study theology. So what do we need to do to make that happen and to strengthen what is already there and the wonderful tradition? And we made the decision to consolidate the entire seminary operation on the upper part of the campus. And we're in the process of arranging for that, of course, necessary approvals and interacting with Lower Merion Township, and very grateful for the support of the township and with our community there in Lower Merion. We have a master plan for what the seminary could look like, please God, as through a complete renovation of the facility. And then we would be funding that in part, that both the renovations, but even more important, helping to fund to sustain the seminary well into the future by monetizing some portion of the remainder of the property. And the college building is a tremendous asset. And it's an asset for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, as you've already mentioned, it's holy ground.
Yes.
And it's sacred not only to the men who have been formed for the priesthood there, but to Catholics and to people of all faiths.
Yes.
So many people love the seminary and love what it represents, and really love the ambiance and the sense of the sacred and the serenity that's there.
Yes.
So that's an asset. And it's an asset also, though, that could be providing a different service to the community going forward. To help people in a different way, which of course the church definitely does in so many ministries. And it's an asset, though, too, that put to the good use of the future can continue to sustain our mission. And everybody agrees with that. So what that plan will be has been the subject of much discussion with the seminary. It's widely known that the seminary has marketed the property, not the entire property, but that portion where that we would be interested in developing. And we've received proposals, and we're still reviewing them. We haven't made any commitments or any final decisions yet with who that partner will be in the development of it going forward. We hope to do so sometime in 2015, actually, because we need to sort of resolve that. So ideally, it would be certainly has to be a partner that would be consistent with the mission of the seminary.
Yes.
And complementary to it, and both not to it can't get in the way of the ministry of the seminary, but really to support it, and we're confident that we can do that. So yes, there's been a lot of attention has been on that, and we hope to.
Will be residential development, I assume, not commercial.
Well, it's really, I would say that certainly is the primary interest of the developers that have spoken to us. Yeah.
Okay, because the word has been that it'll be developed as a senior living community.
I think that would be a very compatible use.
It certainly would.
I think I think a lot of people would like to live there.
Yes.
It's a great location.
Yeah, it's a wonderful location.
So, and
how many acres?
76 total. The seminary had more acreage before.
Yes.
The Shortridge community behind us.
Yes.
That
was some time ago.
Neighborhood, yes, was sold. Actually, I was a seminarian in the early 1980s.
In fact, it was a classmate of mine who developed that.
Oh, really?
Who built it? D'Agostino was it? I think it was. Something like that.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's a beautiful community.
Oh, he was quite fortunate to be.
Yes.
That was a coup to cut that deal. Yeah. So your expectation is by 2017 or so,
please God,
whatever's going to happen will have happened or be underway.
Well, once we get all the necessary approvals and a plan that is to do our renovation, we expect that would take 2 years.
Okay.
To do.
Well, if it does,
because the seminary stays in operation throughout that.
If it does turn out to be a senior living facility, put us on the list.
Okay.
My wife and I.
That's liable to take a lot longer. I'm talking about just the seminary would take 2 years.
Yeah, and my wife said the same thing. This probably won't happen in our lifetime.
Well, I would have to say, if the seminary is at a critical point, we have to do this.
Yes.
When I spoke earlier about the sustainability of the seminary, we have to do this to not only to survive, but certainly to strengthen the seminary, and which is really what it's all about.
Can you tell, and I don't know if this has been disclosed, and if it hasn't been, fine, I'll rescind the question. Can you tell us whether it would be a sale or a lease of the property? Has that
we've opened up the possibility for either, so we haven't settled on it yet.
Okay.
But we obviously, that we would want to do what is in the best interest of the seminary in the long term.
Sure. Yeah. You talked about the sustainability of the seminary. is as you look out as part of your strategic plan, you now have about, as I recall, about 133, 135 seminarians
Yes.
from all over the
130.
country, not just the
Yes.
Philadelphia Archdiocese. And has that been the case? That is, has the seminary been open to people outside of Philadelphia for a very long time?
Yes, actually, pretty much from its beginning, from its founding.
I didn't realize that. I thought it was all, at one point, all Philadelphia seminarians from the Philadelphia feeder schools, the high schools.
Sure. Well, it's been, there was a time, actually, when I was in the seminary, when I entered the seminary, the majority of students were still
Yes.
all Philadelphians, but
Right.
there would be a certain number of seminarians that were with me at the time and in my class. A little bit of trivia, but when I entered theology in 1981, there were 30 seminarians in my class, and I remember the rector then, Monsignor Burns, who's, God rest him, telling us in the class that it was the first class where the majority of students were not from the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. It was, I think it was like 14 to 16 or something like that. But we, that trend has continued over the years, and it's actually been a great blessing to the seminary.
Well, has it been a result, in part at least, of other seminaries closing around the country?
To some extent, but more that the bishops of dioceses that partner with St. Charles for the formation of their men choose the seminary for the quality of the program, which has been historically very strong.
Okay.
And because of those relationships form, and then the priests of those dioceses have the relationship as well, and as alumni, and so I would say it's more of a historical relationship that they've had than it is the result of another place having closed.
There's a phrase that has always seemed funny to me, like somehow it seems to be a misnomer, that St. Charles Borromeo produces secular priests as opposed to religious priests who are part of a religious order. Do we still use the phrase secular priests?
Secular priests, yes. Sometimes they would more often referred to as diocesan priests.
Yes.
They would be priests who are attached to a local diocese, and as opposed to the Jesuits or the Augustinians or Franciscans. St. Charles has a number of religious who are studying for the priesthood at St. Charles.
Oh, really?
We have two religious congregations. The Capuchin Franciscans out of Wilmington, Delaware, have had seminarians at St. Charles for quite some time, as also the Order of Our Lady of Mercy, the Mercedarians, who administer Our Lady of Lourdes Parish right on the edge of the city in Overbrook, send their seminarians to St. Charles also. And over the years, we've had Norbertines from Dalesford Abbey. We have one young seminarian there who's studying part-time right now. And different congregations have had seminarians at St. Charles. But we've been primarily a seminary for diocesan priests.
Yes.
Or secular priests, as they're called.
Yes, but of the 133 or so who are there now.
Oh, we have, I believe, 3 students right now, or 4 seminarians who are religious.
Who are religious.
Right.
But what percentage or what number of them are from outside of the Philadelphia Diocese?
There are 50 seminarians right now of the 130 for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, approximately 50. And the balance would be from the 9 other dioceses that we partner with.
And the seminary or the college has an undergraduate degree program as well as the graduate degree.
Yes, we're unique
Masters.
in this, and we've studied this, and actually since I've been rector, as to whether or not the part of the sustainable model was to continue the way we're structured. And we've determined that we are intending to do that. So what we have at St. Charles is a residential college seminary program for undergraduates.
Yes.
So young men who come in right out of high school or with a year or 2 of college live and take all their classes, for the most part, at St. Charles.
Yes.
And it's one major. They would earn a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. We have a great relationship with St. Joseph's University, and our men take electives there. We utilize their athletic facilities and have a good relationship with that. But they do take their courses, for the most part, at St. Charles. And it's unique in the sense that many seminaries and dioceses have created a college seminary program which is a bit of a hybrid, where they would commute to a local college, to St. Joe's or Villanova or Newman University, something like that. So we're the only residential college seminary of its kind in the northeast part of the United States. Whereas even 25 years ago, there were many more. There's one in Florida, and there's one in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio, the Pontifical Josephinum. Also one up in Minneapolis in Minnesota.
Does St. Charles have a doctoral program?
We don't, but that would be a potential growth area for us.
Well, you are a college, not a university, is that correct?
We're fully accredited by Middle States,
yes,
the Association of Theological Schools, but we're not a university.
I have a stupid question. Do you have to have university status to be able to offer a doctoral program?
That's a good question for my academic staff. So.
Okay. I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, part of my background is you know what you know. I think so, but it's been discussed.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, to continue, we have a master's degree, a Master of Arts in Theology and a Master's of Divinity, and we offer a Master of Arts in Philosophical Studies. Because some of the men coming into the seminary have been to college already and graduated from college.
Yes.
And they need to do 2 years of preparatory studies in philosophy and theology and classical languages and some pastoral studies to prepare for theological studies in proximate preparation to be priests. That's a 4-year program, 8 semesters. And so they do 2 years of pre-theology, and now at St. Charles, the seminarians who enter for that program will be earning in those 2 years a Master of Arts in Philosophical Studies.
The 133 or so do not include lay people who are there for degrees?
In addition to the seminary program, future priests, the St. Charles has the great joy of being responsible for the formation of permanent deacons in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. We have about 75 men, most of whom are married and have professional lives, who are in formation to become deacons. It's a 6-year program. And then we have our School of Theological Studies, which has been in existence actually for over 40 years, where laymen and women, people of all faiths, quite a few religious sisters and brothers, and priests as well, can study for their Master of Arts in Theology. And that program is it's part-time, but it's primarily in the evenings and during the summers. And we have a great number of people in the Philadelphia area have studied at St. Charles and have earned their master's degree.
I guess I wasn't aware of that. I knew that a number of religious would go back to the seminary for their master's degrees. My late aunt, who was a nun, a Mother Superior, went back to St. Charles and Villanova, I guess. It was a joint venture of some kind.
It used to be called the Religious Studies Division. Or the Graduate School of Theology. We were calling it the School of Theological Studies.
The question occurs to me, Bishop, is the program also open to, well, non-Catholics, but also non-Christians? Are there members of the Jewish community who, if interested, would come for a degree in theology?
Sure, absolutely. That would be most welcome. And it would enrich the community.
It would.
We have had the opportunities for interfaith dialogue. It's very important for the men in formation for the priesthood, and I would welcome that kind of an outreach, and we have had some of that. Archbishop Chaput has been quite active in Philadelphia in interfaith relations. We have a long history of that and working with the Jewish community, as does St. Joseph University, which has a center for interreligious dialogue, and so we would welcome that.
What have been the trend lines over the past few years for vocations for the priesthood?
Nationally, the number of seminarians has increased in recent years, and the trend had been the opposite, going back to the late 1960s. You know, the kind of the baby boom generation, of which I'm at the tail end of, entered the seminary in very, very large numbers and in religious life, and was really responsible for a really kind of an extraordinary spike in the numbers of seminarians and religious candidates for religious life in the church's history, somewhat of an anomaly. But since that time, there's been a decline, and there are many factors that have influenced that. But in recent years, we've seen it turn around. And it hasn't turned around as quickly in the Northeast, or the kind of the large traditional dioceses of the northeastern part of the country. The growth has been primarily in the South and the Southwest, also in the Midwest. We see an uptick. It is the result of the changing demographic in the United States and the growing Latino community here, which is predominantly Catholic, and as well as Asian and African immigrants to the United States who are many of whom are Catholic. But there is also a very inspiring trend which we actually saw yesterday vividly in the March for Life in Washington.
Yes.
I've gone there many, many times over the list, as many people of faith have. And of the hundreds of thousands of people who were in the March for Life yesterday, it was overwhelmingly young people. There's an increased spiritual and religious fervor among the millennials, and an interest in spirituality. And the young men coming into the seminary come out of that experience.
Yes.
Many of them in high school, but also colleges and universities. They have been disillusioned by a lot of the secular tendencies in our culture today, and want to hold on to something that is truly lasting and that they can put their trust in. And that's what they find in a faith life.
But in a faith life, so maybe you just answered my question.
Right.
I understand their yearning for some spirituality, in stark contrast to the secularism we all live in now. But does that necessarily translate into a religious life? Isn't there a distinction between being spiritual and not necessarily religious?
Yes, yes. And I would say, but the tendencies, for an increasing number of them, yes. You certainly see a tendency that would towards volunteerism,
yes,
towards
part of the
really
value system,
a professional life that wants to give back and make a difference in the world.
I agree with that.
That would suggest that young people today are more favorably disposed to making a life commitment to ministry.
Let's go to the opposite, the other extreme, though, boomers, of which you say you are one. All right, 78, 79 million boomers, who 10,000 a day turning 65, and are coming to the realization that they've got another 25, 30 years of hopefully good life left. And at some point say, what am I going to do with this? Many of whom are widows or widowers, I guess. Do you find another trend that older men are coming into the seminary, are beginning to realize they may have a vocation in the third stage of their lives?
That has been a trend over the, in recent years,
Yes.
by the church's standards, recent decades, I should
Yes.
say. There have that men enter formation to the seminary at an older age. There are, right now for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, we have 3 men studying, not at St. Charles actually, but at a seminary in Boston, John the 23rd Seminary, which is specifically a program for older men.
Oh, is that right?
Many of whom have been married, their wives passed away, and they've had, or have never been married, but we have actually 2 men, Jim Cardosi and Kevin Mulligan, who, please God, will be ordained to the priesthood this year at John the 23rd Seminary, and we have a young man in First Theology there. And we have a couple of candidates this year who are in application. So maybe you're right, but I would say that the trend has been more noticeable that younger seminarians, again, are, which is part of the reason we're recommitting to the college seminary, that we think that there is going to be a demand. And we're hearing this from our partner dioceses. And I would, particularly the Diocese of Arlington in Northern Virginia, in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is another diocese that sends their seminarians to St. Charles. The Diocese of Trenton has now committed to St. Charles to use St. Charles as their college seminary exclusively, because they see more young men, and those bishops choose that type of a program. Now, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, similar in terms of our recruitment of candidates for the priesthood for our diocese, has not been at the same pace as places like Raleigh or in the Southwest, or dioceses in Florida, for example. And we can theorize about why that's the case, but we have some work to do here in the Philadelphia community in increasing the number of vocations to the priesthood from Philadelphia. And also among the changing demographic that's here within the African American and Latino community. And we have some great leadership in that, but our local recruitment needs to be better for us to keep pace with the number of Catholics, actually, which is either stable or increasing in some areas of the Archdiocese.
I think I know. You've been reaching out, the church has been reaching out, and St. Charles in particular, reaching out to the business community for expertise, for financial support, for involvement, collaboration. What form is that taking?
Well,
And
this has been
what's been the response?
absolutely. You know, this is certainly part of who we are as Catholics. That you know, we're all the church together, and giving opportunities for the laity to actively and fully participate and to assume leadership in the church. It's God's plan. I mean, it's the way it's supposed to be. Priests can't. I happen to have professional training and professional degrees, but I need, you know, we need that expertise, and so that's happening, and it's certainly been a distinguishing characteristic of what Archbishop Chaput has done since he's come to Philadelphia and been leading a renewal and refocus of the church here. But to bring those talents to the work of priestly formation is also something that has been a priority for me, partly because of my background, but also because of listening to priests. I worked for 5 years in clergy personnel, and I saw the strain that priests are often under, particularly pastors and priests in administration, because of the administrative burden that they have. And these are men who are not trained, most of them, to be able to read a balance sheet or put a budget together or do that kind of hard, really stressful work in human resources, fundraising. They're trained to be men of prayer, spirituality, teaching the faith, and we want them to do that, to administer the sacraments. But they do have this responsibility to be leaders and facilitate a variety of ministries. And since the Second Vatican Council, a typical parish has become much more complex. Many more ministries, many more lay employees. So it is literally a mid-size or small business. Multi-million-dollar budgets is not unusual, especially if you have an elementary school. And some parts of our archdiocese, there's been growth in that area. And so we have been trying to capitalize on a tremendous interest in the Philadelphia area of Catholic lay people who want to help. I'm thinking of the Catholic Leadership Institute, which a number of Catholic leaders came together to create to train priests. Tim Flanagan. Yes,
great work. Great work.
And he was the founder, and has, together with a lot of collaborators with him. So they've been working with the seminary because we want to try to get the men, first of all, aware of their need to work on this skill set, but also to begin to develop those skills and to become leaders who will recognize what their role properly is and what you need other people to do for you. And so it's the Catholic Leadership Institute, but I would also say we have a great relationship with the Villanova University Center for Church Management. And
St. Joe's,
Chuck Zeck.
And St. Joe's program as well.
We have a program at Villanova in the summers for some of our men in formation. And then St. Joseph's University, the Hobbs School of Business, developed Dean D'Angelo and several of his faculty, developed a program for our seminarians in the principles of servant leadership. A priest must be a leader, but he needs to be a leader that is after the heart of Jesus Christ, a servant leader who understands that the leadership style that works best in the church, and I believe works best in all environments, government, business, not-for-profit, is that of a leader that is servant first.
As I said to you, I think Christ was a social entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
So we're going to introduce entrepreneurship and innovation, hopefully.
Well, we're doing that, actually, and it's very important, I understand, to be able to have those skills and an awareness of allowing the laity to properly exercise their role. It comes to mind in more effectively utilizing, for example, social communications.
Oh, absolutely.
Take advantage of what has happened with the explosion of the internet and how we all have
for good and bad.
Absolutely, but let's use it for good. As it was Pope Benedict that really challenged the church to begin to think about this more, and Pope Francis is using it very effectively.
For those who may want more information about St. Charles Borromeo, today and tomorrow, how can they do that? The website is?
I'd invite them to visit our website, which is very simply scs.edu.
All right.
scs.edu, St. Charles Seminary, And there you can access a number of different connecting points for us. The seminarians have their own blog called Sem Casual, which is a great window into our life. And also, you can follow us on Facebook,
Okay.
Twitter, all of that.
I hope you'll come back when there's more to report about
Thank you
St.
so
Charles
much.
Borromeo. Thank you very
Grateful
much,
for the
Bishop, for being
opportunity.
here.
God bless you.
Thank you. We need that too. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I am Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves. Check out St. Charles Borromeo. There's some exciting things going on the campus there.